Hello, all of our adoring fans. We're doing a Nostalgia Club event at the Anaheim Convention Center.
Wow, it really echoes in here when there's no one in the audience. Hi,
My mom did not show up.
No! Hello, welcome back to part 2 of our Season 3 recap of Nostalgia Club. We're so glad you're here.
And I am also glad to be here.
I'm here. Okay, hold on. Back up. My name is Jino, and I'm here with my 2 co-hosts.
Victoria.
Michael. I was trying to say it at the same time as you.
3, 2, 1.
Victoria.
Michael.
What?
Michael.
What if I said Michael?
Victoria.
That would have been really funny.
3,
Yeah.
2, 1.
Victoria. Victoria.
Perfect. Oh, boy. We're doing a Season 3 recap. If you haven't listened to part 1, you should totally do that. I guess you don't have to. There's no...
Yes, you do. We make the rules here.
You have to listen
It's
to
a
the
lot
first
of fun,
part.
so I recommend listening to it.
We just recorded it, so there might be inside jokes from that episode that you would probably appreciate more
That's
if you
true.
listened
Yeah.
to it first.
That's right, listener. We didn't have to wait for this recap, but you did.
And if this is your first episode of Nostalgia Club, probably go back and listen to some of Season 3's episodes before you come back here, because we're going to be talking about any missed thoughts, any reactions to new updates in these series or media empires or whatnot, talking about past episodes, reflecting on them nostalgically.
Yeah.
What's
Like,
our-
For example,
Yes.
our first one,
Pacific Rim.
there's been so many updates. So much news.
I'm really proud of this episode, actually. I don't think I've ever been that eloquent for a Nostalgia Club episode as I was in this Pacific Rim episode.
You did have like a lot. I mean, you've told us that like you really like to construct your thought processes on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you came with like
Yeah.
a
I
treatise.
mean, I think it's like probably because I've like watched this movie so many times, but like some of those thoughts that I talked about were thoughts that I came up with on the most recent rewatch. So it wasn't even like I'd been like ruminating on my thoughts for like years to
But
like
it was-
bring to this podcast.
I'm sure it was still in the background.
Fun fact about Pacific Rim, though, speaking of just being
Oh.
prepared for things, my friends and I were playing this game called Actually, which is a card game based off of the game show that College Humor did. But one of the questions was about Pacific Rim, and it was about like the ending of the movie, like, oh, like how do they like close the breach or whatever. And I remembered, I was like, oh, I just did this, like, and it's because like the bomb can't get through the breach because they have to like ride through a kaiju or whatever. Anyways, so I was like very excited that I was so prepared for that game because of Nostalgia Club, which it happened multiple times that night because there was also a red wall question, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then there was a Spirited Away question, which we'll talk about later.
Is actually taking cues from nostalgia?
Yeah, I was
No, I'm
like,
kidding.
You heard it here first, folks. Nostalgia Club can prepare you for this one very specific scenario.
Yeah. No, I was
Impress
just
your
like,
friends like 1/10 of the time.
it felt like there was a pop quiz that I had pre-studied for. And so I was like prepared for it.
Hey.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was fun. But yeah, Pacific Rim, great episode. One of my friends listened to it and was like, yeah, like I had never thought about what you said about it being Mako's versus like Raleigh's story and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm so glad that we were able to share this discussion with the world.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Good movie, good episode.
One movie. They only made one movie. It's a good movie.
Only one.
Wasn't there like some recent Pacific Rim news?
I heard they're making a Pacific Rim TV show, anime TV show about the kaiju specifically, but that was a while ago. I don't know if they're still if they
An
followed up on
animated
that.
TV
Oh, they're
show
making
about
okay.
the
So
kaiju
they did
specifically?
announce in August that there's a prequel series in development at Legendary. I don't know if it's gonna be good though.
Without Del Toro, I don't trust it.
Didn't they do a Godzilla series? A live-action Godzilla series?
At Legendary?
Was it Legendary?
Are you talking about the Godzilla vs. Kong series and all the other movies?
No. There was like a TV series.
A live-action Godzilla TV series.
Did it have Kurt Russell?
Was it about Monarch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was called Monarch.
I don't know anyone who's watched that.
Ah.
I don't think anyone watched it.
I have a friend who worked on it, in the visual effects department.
Whoa.
That's all I know.
Dang.
Highly elusive.
Yeah.
Like a shiny Pokemon. Or a shiny question from...
Oh yeah, shiny questions
Actually.
in Actually. Wow. Yeah, but I guess if the series comes out when we're still doing Nostalgia Club, maybe we'll watch it and do another episode about it. I don't know. There's there's an animated series, I think on Netflix. I haven't watched that one, but maybe I'll watch it at some point and see if it's good.
I don't know about this whole Pacific Rim franchise they're trying to build. I feel like the second movie killed so much momentum that there's not really much more you can do. Also, the first movie was so all-encompassing.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can explore in that universe without making it derivative.
They closed the breach. So the only thing, I mean, they did do a sequel, but then it felt like...
It was a messy sort of...
Yeah, it was messy. And I think prequels might be more interesting than a sequel, so I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
But I agree with Jino where I'm like, if Del Toro isn't involved, then it feels like it probably won't have the same...
touch.
Shine. Yeah.
Or grime, because the second one was too shiny, in my opinion.
That's true. That's true. Whether you're robots.
Whether you're costumes.
Yeah.
Whether you're robots or your costumes, you too can pilot a Jaeger. I'm sorry.
Nice. Well, after Pacific Rim, we had the Chronicles of Prydain. 2 whole episodes about the Chronicles of Prydain where we talked about books 3 through 5.
Michael, have you read The Foundling yet?
Yes, I have read The Foundling.
Hooray!
The Foundling is wonderful. I think I read The Foundling.
I thought he had read it when we...
Oh, I listened to the season 2 recap. Cut all this.
Oh.
I didn't listen to the... I don't remember. Oh, no, you did, because you talked about the story about the wizard who was like... Or they were like, oh, marry my daughter. And then all these people were like, I change the elements. And then she was like, but like that happens anyway.
Eilonwee's mother.
Yeah, okay, yes, I did talk about it.
And then the guy was like, oh, and she was like, nice. And then... Sorry,
Street magic.
That didn't translate through audio.
Now I'm like, we need a recap of The Foundling, but just told by Jino with like sound effects.
But I haven't read it.
So you got to read it. I also need to read it.
Well, I'll bring it with me one of these days and loan it to y'all. Victoria got it for me for a Christmas gift, I think.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, it was lovely. And the stories are great, and they're bite-sized, so it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, a lot of them are maybe loosely connected in terms of concept. Most of them are standalone, and so they're kind of like, they read like folk tales in a lot of ways. So it's really enjoyable just to like
I love those
sit
like
down and...
anthology side stories. They're always so fun. Also, shout out to the people who reached out to us about Prydain and said that they hadn't seen other people talk about Prydain, and so they thought it was cool that we did 3 whole episodes about it. Yeah. I realized that sometimes doing like smaller niche series is really fulfilling because other people like haven't had a chance to like talk about the thing. Like, for example, like I keep trying to get you guys to like read Gideon the Ninth or the Locked Tomb series because I'm like, I need more people to talk to about it, which I have some friends who have read it, but it's always just fun to bring more people in.
Yeah.
But you know, like those like series that you read as a kid where you're like, no one else has had this experience as me, but I just want to like talk about it with someone. So I'm glad that Nostalgia Club has provided that for some people.
I will say Victoria gave me a very solid pitch to read Gideon the Ninth, which was, it's about necromancers in the solar system.
Yeah. What more could you want?
As opposed to out of the solar system.
Do they leave the solar system?
No.
In the second one?
Well...
I'm never quite sure where they are or what's happening.
I'm not enough of a Locked Tomb expert to...
Like I can be like, oh yeah, that's Pluto, maybe. And
okay, yeah. I think in the second
Earth.
book they are no longer in our solar system. They're still in space though.
They're somewhere.
Yes, it's complicated because also like they're like lictors, where they're like kind of like close to godhood in the world of necromancers, and they can like travel. There's this whole thing called the river, which I still don't fully understand, which allows them to like travel to places faster.
They like leave their bodies, but they're still there, but they're like somewhere else fighting something.
Yeah.
But, like,
sounds cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just think it's totally up your alley because you love sci-fi and it's a really good series. So.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Second Locked Tomb tangent of these recap episodes. But yeah, Prydain.
We'll have a third later.
Yeah. I want the 4th book to come out. I was like, by the time the 4th book comes out, will I be nostalgic for Gideon the Ninth?
Hey, I was thinking about this. Our baseline for what we're nostalgic for keeps, as time marches on, Like
I was thinking about that the other day because I was like thinking about options for the season 4 lineup, and I was like, am I nostalgic for things that I watched in college yet?
I think that counts. I think we're getting to the point where that counts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm nostalgic for Animal Crossing New Horizons, or no, which one came out during the pandemic?
New Horizons.
Yeah, Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is only like 4 or 5 years old.
That's fair.
But like,
yeah,
I
it's
feel
like you're nostalgic for like a time that passed.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't a great time like globally, but there's something nice about like sitting in a very small room playing Animal Crossing and being like, this is my only way of interacting with other people.
Yeah, that was a time.
I will say I've talked about Prydain to the ends of the earth, and I probably could still do so.
And you should.
We will run out of... These episodes are long enough. However, I did, in the intervening time, watch a little documentary about Lloyd Alexander, the author, which is just on YouTube. I had watched a little featurette from when Lloyd Alexander and his wife were both still alive, and it was sort of like an interview with him where he talks a little bit about his life and whatnot. But this was something that I think was made after he passed away and after his wife Janine passed away as well, that was talking a little bit more in detail about his life. And it was also, in some respects, interviewing like friends of his who were themselves rather, like on the elderly side of things. So you're getting like kind of firsthand accounts. And I don't want to speak, it was a little while ago, so I don't want to speak erroneously if I'm misremembering things. But you learn a lot of interesting details about his life that provide additional context to like some of the surface level stuff I might have mentioned in the Prydain episodes about like how he was involved in World War II. It goes into more detail. It seemed like he was kind of a bit of a misfit for the army, as you might imagine. And he kind of like moved from place to place to place until eventually being picked out and recruited for spy work.
Whoa.
And because originally when we talked about like how he was involved in the war, it was, he went to Wales for a time and was there for a couple weeks training for like intelligence stuff. And then D-Day happened and his services weren't quite as required, I guess. But I guess he had been picked out with a number of other people. And as the story goes, just a person in plain clothes, not like in an army uniform, just came in. And after, he and a number of others had been put through this course about, France and the French countryside and all this stuff, just came in and just talked to him and asked him questions and about like, okay, and what kind of flowers grow outside of Paris at this time of the year? And so on and so forth. And I guess Lloyd Alexander, who taught himself to read at a very young age and was always very oriented towards that, had the right kind of mind, I guess. And he was more or less being trained to be like, I guess sort of like an operative, to be like parachuted in prior to D-Day.
Whoa.
Or at some point to like maybe connect with the French resistance and be a spy, basically, which is more detail than I had prior to watching that little documentary. I also learned some interesting things about specifically the Chronicles of Prydain and his process of creating it, because one of the interviews was with like his editor. And as we talked about in the Prydain episodes, there was this notion of, yes, his time in Wales captured his imagination and influenced him later on to create Prydain. Well, it turns out it's a little bit more of a circuitous story than that. For many years after the war, he was writing and trying to write for an adult audience specifically. He was working a day job every day, and then he would come home and write till midnight. He was just one of those people that just like locks in, I guess. Like that's his thing. And for a long time, I think like 7 years or so, made no headway. Wrote a bunch of stuff, none of it published. He, interestingly, in the meantime, because he knew French, he had connected while he was in France for a time in like the sort of post-war, connected with a French author whom he would translate his works for an English speaking audience. And that was like some ways that he supplemented his income. But for 7 years, made no headway. And then he wrote his first children's book, which I think was, or not specifically children's book, it was his first book written from his like personal experiences, which was him reflecting on the time spent as like, I think a page for the bank or something. And I forget the exact title of the book, but it was published. And then he started writing more from his experience. He wrote a book about his wife, about her like coming to America and like the process of her adjustment, the care and the love, but the miscommunications and misadventures of all that. And then he started writing for children, and he wrote a book called Time Cat.
Nice.
Which was about like cats, again, having like 9 lives. But what if their lives weren't all spent in the same time and place? Jino looks perplexed.
I owned this book as a kid. I remember Time Cat.
Oh.
That's Lloyd Alexander, baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Nice.
and wrote other books as well. And it was, I think, while writing Time Cat, that he was like, okay, I want one of Time Cat's lives to be spent in like Ireland and, you know, St. Patrick and all this stuff is happening. And in the process of researching, realized, oh, St. Patrick is Welsh. And there's actually more going on in the mythology of Ireland that maybe I'll pull from in this regard. And the more he looked into the mythology of, I don't know, the larger British Isles or Wales, Ireland, etc., the more he realized, oh, there's a lot going on here. This deserves its own attention. And so, yes, his time in Wales did inspire him, but it was after he revisited it and did more reading, after he was already sort of writing towards children, that it like recaptured his imagination.
So would you say he was nostalgic for...
Ooh, I suppose perhaps.
Nostalgia influenced the Chronicles of Prydain.
Yeah, I'm sure that must have come through because apparently his first draft for a first chapter for Prydain, when he sent it to his editor, and there's like the interview of his editor in this documentary where she's like, it was terrible. She's like, it was, you know, all this like basically lore and there were dragons flying around. And I was like, Lloyd, you gotta give me something. Just like, you gotta start with a character and a place. Just like, right, like Taran wanted to make a sword, and that's what he began the book with. So maybe root your stuff in characters, and it's a little more palatable.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. 7 years of working really, really hard at a craft you loved, and then flipping
an
to
additional
nonfiction.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, and then flipping to children's literature. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dang.
I also have 2 more tidbits. So this might actually like provide some interesting clarity just as you reflect on reading the book. Lloyd Alexander wrote the first book, and then he wrote, I think, the second, third, and what was supposed to be the fourth book all together, all in a line.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it was, I don't know if he had some writer's block or his progress wasn't as slow as he liked, but he had what he, I guess, described as a near-death experience, where he was on lunch from his day job at one time, and was walking down the street and saw some sort of building renovation demolition going on. Large wrecking ball swinging overhead. And stood there on the sidewalk, just sort of watching it for a bit, and then went home and then saw in the paper the very next day that wrecking ball had come loose and had dropped right in the spot where he had been standing.
Whoa.
Which, granted, it was like a full, I don't know if it happened the next day or just sometime later. It didn't happen like while he was there, but I guess it really like affected him. And he had a very strong connection to the idea of he wanted to make sure the book series was complete for all of these like new fans that it had gained, and just worked extra hard to finish it from that point. Interestingly, the fifth book, The High King, was originally going to be the fourth book. He had written everything except what was the actual fourth book, Taran Wanderer, and sent it to his editor, and she was like, there's something missing here. There's something, we begin the last book with Taran coming back from this adventure. We need to see that adventure. We need to see what he goes through.
So he had written this adventure in sort of like off to the side. Like it happened away, and now he comes back and he's older.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
And so...
Didn't we all say that Taran Wanderer was one of our favorites?
I think so. It's certainly mine.
Yeah.
So...
Can you imagine if, like, he hadn't written it? That's so...
Wow. That's cool. I didn't know that.
And I feel like after I learned that, it made a little more sense to me, because Taran Wanderer is a very different...
Like, the tone is different.
The tone is different.
And the writing style is just a little different.
Yeah. Books 3 and 5 seem a lot more similar than either of them do to book 4.
Very, like, questy.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. That editor knew what they were doing.
She's with it.
Listen to your editors. No matter the profession.
Yeah. That's why I value like secondary feedback so much, because it's like you might be writing something and it works in your head, but then someone else might say like, it's working, but I really think this other thing needs to be in there. And I just think that's like so valuable to have as a writer.
Yeah. You never have to make sure every single person on earth likes and understands your thing. That's impossible. But if someone you really trust doesn't understand or like your thing, maybe work on it.
But yeah, a little extra Prydain trivia there.
Wow.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Michael.
Yeah, my understanding is expanded.
Yeah.
I can see new colors.
That's frankly all I got for all of Prydain, I think, which I think is 2 episodes.
Yeah, really great 2 episodes.
I've said this before, but I love the Prydain episodes.
Yeah.
I love just being inundated with lore and knowledge.
I think it's also satisfying because like we all like read it around the same time. So then it's like it's fresh in our heads. So we can also like really dive into the details as opposed to like Lord of the Rings, for example. Like we've all read or watched Lord of the Rings, but like it was so long ago. There's some things that I probably would never like talk about just because it's like I don't remember it well enough.
We should do a Lord of the Rings episode.
I was like...
We probably should.
We should do a Lord of the Rings episode. The thing I just keep going back to is like, how?
I've never read the books.
It's too long. I can't reread it.
Yeah. Heck,
Okay,
even if we watched the extended edition, it would still be a haul.
If we were like, okay, we're going to do a Lord of the Rings Nostalgia Club episode, I think I would have to start reading it like right now for us to like talk about next year.
I mean, the movies are what we're really nostalgic for. Like, I've read the books, but like the movie, like when I think of Lord of the Rings,
I am
I
more
picture
nostalgic for the movies. So we
Right?
can watch the movies.
Like, we
Yeah,
can
but
just
what if I want all that Tom Bombadil Goldberry stuff? No, I'm
I
kidding.
do love Tom Bombadil.
singing his songs.
We should do
Playing hacky sack with the ring.
We should do a food party and watch Lord of the Rings.
We can make that an event. That could be
Yeah.
like a nostalgia club event.
Or it can just be an event. We don't have to do it.
We
for
don't have to turn
nostalgia.
everything into work.
We can do it as a fun thing and then talk about it in the Nostalgia Club.
Hello, all of our adoring fans. We're doing a Nostalgia Club event at the Anaheim Convention Center.
Wow, it really echoes in here when there's no one in the audience.
My
Hi,
mom did not show up.
No! Tragic. She went to the wrong Anaheim Convention Center.
Oof.
No,
you know what? It'd be really a failure if none of our parents showed up to a Nostalgia Club event.
In my parents' defense, they do live several states over.
Yes.
It's a trek. And your parents.
Yeah.
In my parents' defense,
The Anaheim Convention Center?
it's traffic.
Anaheim.
How late is it? Oh.
Anaheim. They sold Otani, so like, come on. Anaheim.
That's true.
No,
Anyways,
I'm so down to do like a watch and food thing. It's a good concept. I did
Yeah.
that once for Legend of Zelda when I was like about to fight Ganon in Breath of the Wild. So I invited some friends over, like, guys, like it'll be an event. I'll fight Ganon and then we'll eat some Breath of the Wild food. The Ganon fight's so fast. It was over like 20 minutes and I was like, oh,
yeah.
thought this would be...
It'd be a much bigger event if I was the one fighting Ganon, because
Yeah. But we did make some Breath of the Wild food. We made a few things, but the only one I really remember was the dubious food where we made a Jell-O salad. It was
dubious.
dubious. I mean, it was edible, right? It was like green Jell-O and like blue Jell-O mixed together with a whole bunch of like candy in it. But we made too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was just a bunch of sugar.
It's like a gimmicky thing where you're like, we should have it, but like not make a huge portion because like
Yeah.
no one's going to eat all that.
I made too much.
Yeah. It's okay. You live and you learn.
I do like Jell-O.
Yeah.
Hooray, Prydain.
Hooray. After Prydain, we had Spirited Away.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a lot more to say about Spirited Away, except that I still really want to do Howl's Moving Castle next season. I actually have a really long list of things I want to cover in season 4, so maybe I will not
Make this a double season.
overtake the season again.
I love this. At first, we thought, like, oh, we're going to run out
No,
of
yeah,
stuff we're nostalgic
when we
for.
first started Nostalgia Club, we were like, yeah, like we might start running out of ideas by like season 3. But it'd be really fun to do. But now we're just like, there's so many things to be nostalgic for.
It was a process because season 1, we were like, oh, we have so many things. And season 2, where we're like, man, do we have?
It's because we started off with
Anything?
like the whole like one of us hasn't like read or watched it.
Yeah.
And now we're just like, whatever. We're just going to be nostalgic for everything.
We don't need boundaries. We
Yeah.
break through those.
And again, like you said, Jino, like there's no like limit to nostalgia because
Yeah.
we're going to keep getting older and we're going to keep being nostalgic. for things.
Ideally, we will all keep getting older.
Yeah, actually, guys, I'm gonna stop aging after this. Michael and I did have a funny bit because for my birthday this year, I wanted to like do like a birthday thing, but I ended up being too busy. And then Michael was like, "Just delay your birthday. Just don't turn
Postpone.
26."
Contact the United States government. Hey, I know you have to update my records, but I'm delaying my birthday.
No, I was joking because I was like, when you turn 26, you get kicked off your parents' health insurance or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna call my insurance company and be like, actually, I'm no longer turning 26, and I'm delaying it. So
Yeah,
you had to keep me on the insurance. But
God, I
if
wish.
only that was how it worked, right?
Yeah.
if only. The American healthcare system is famously works with you to do
Yeah.
whatever you need to do.
Topical.
Topical. Only new Ghibli thing I have is I went to Korea to see family, and there was just so much Ghibli stuff everywhere. There were like Ghibli pop-ups, which I thought was interesting. Like stores were like, and now we're doing a Howl's Moving Castle thing. And I'm like, that movie's really old. Still going? All right. Cool.
I think Studio Ghibli, like, they can just continue releasing merch and people will buy it.
That's
and by people,
so
I mean
true.
myself.
And also me and also most of my friends.
Yeah.
They have cemented themselves in the worldwide consciousness as such an iconic force. I feel like there will be like Ghibli merch in like 100 years.
It's because the aesthetic is so good and there's so many movies. Like you can just like make merch for like individual like movies. I was at Box Lunch the other day and they had so much Studio Ghibli merch still. There were like pajama pants that had Calcifer on them and I was like, should I get Calcifer pajama pants?
The idea of that is very cozy.
Yeah. I will say, like, in terms of, like, merchandise, like, Box Lunch clothes aren't, like, usually, like, things that I would wear. But I was like, pajama pants. Yeah. And they had, like, Totoro slippers.
Ooh.
And they had those, like, little, like, slipper socks that have grippy things on the bottom. And it was, like, Gigi from Kiki's Delivery Service.
Capitalism did one thing right, and it was Studio Ghibli merchandise.
Which is just what Hayao Miyazaki wants.
Yep. Famous proponent of capitalism.
Yeah.
Miyazaki.
Hypothetically, if we wanted to, we could do a whole season just on, like, Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah?
Yeah, because there's so many and, like, so much nuance that you can dive into with each one.
I've seen some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we won't do a whole season, but we will be definitely doing more Studio Ghibli movies in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now this is the moment that I've been the most excited for Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
The next episode is the Babysitters Club.
Woo.
Yay! Okay, so when we did the Babysitters Club episode, Jino and Michael said that they would watch a few episodes of the Netflix show so that we could talk about it. And I'm very excited. I ended up rewatching both seasons just because I was sick and had time. And then I was like, I just love this show. The more I rewatch it, the more I just think I will never forgive Netflix for canceling this show.
Such a good show.
Because it's so good. So anyways, I will open the floor to your guys' thoughts on the Babysitters Club Netflix show.
Well, how much did you watch?
I just watched the episodes that were the title of the books that we read.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I only watched 2 of them. 2 and a little bit. I got a little busy. But I did some of it.
That's okay, Gino.
Half credit?
You're
maybe?
doing great. You got a lot going on.
Fantastic.
Wait, so which 2 did you watch?
First episode and the one about
Stacy?
diabetes.
Diabetes. Okay, Stacy.
Stacy.
Yeah.
The thing about Stacy.
The truth about
the
Stacy.
truth about
The thing about Stacy is, listen, when she chooses with mouth open.
Yeah.
We can't have that in this.
Oh my gosh.
No, I was really impressed. We talked about earlier in the previous episode about modernizing older properties to give them smartphones and the internet and social media and stuff. I think the Babysitters Club nailed it.
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect encapsulation of modernizing your show without losing the tone and the plot, without replacing things with internet and smartphones, while also not like pretending they don't exist, and also like finding ways to honor the original property.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the whole like flyer, they do the whole like the flyer thing in the first episode with like their like retro original logo.
They do
and
like
stuff.
comment on it where they're like, how should we advertise our new club? And they're like, or Janine is the one who suggests making flyers and they're like, that's so old fashioned. But then like, it's just like a fun moment where it's like, they make note of the fact that like, obviously time has passed since these books came out. And so they're updating it. Mm-hmm. Like Claudia buys a retro telephone from Etsy and that's how they have the retro telephone. But like, they didn't get rid of the retro telephone. They didn't like say like, call Christy's cell phone number and that's going to be like the club number. They still
just
like
justified it.
Yeah. They like still were like, we want a landline because we want the aesthetic.
And also, it's like totally plausible the reasons why they do these things with the flyers. They were like, oh yeah, like 3 of us, we're all kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily have social media. And when we do, we don't have a huge following. So we can't, and it's hard to build a following of social media. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when they were like talking about how like, oh man, how are we going to advertise? I was very much relating to their conversation.
Should we make flyers?
Oh my God. Gosh, have you ever seen a podcast advertised on flyers?
Honestly,
This might be a move.
we are
Honestly,
listen,
I think it could work if we like printed out flyers and put them in like coffee shops or like bookstores that allow us to like put up things. Obviously, we're not just gonna go in and like throw like flyers everywhere, but places where like people who are fans of media would frequent, and then they can find a new show to watch or listen to. Sorry,
it's not unheard of.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Los Angeles. People do that with stickers all the time.
That's
we
true.
do have a wall of stickers.
We have a wall of stickers.
Anyway, sorry. Back to the Babysitters Club.
I did take notes.
Okay.
I don't know if you took notes.
I didn't. I'm going straight off of vibes and memory.
Heck yeah.
So again, I only watched 2 of the episodes, so I'll like reserve conversation for the other 2. But the actors, incredible. Like they're kids. Like you can tell they're like kids who are acting. But I only like stuck in that mindset for about 1 or 2 scenes, and then I totally bought into them as characters.
They're so good.
These kids are so talented. Also, the fact that they're able to tell it as a TV series instead of like one-off books means that they're able to reference other plot lines and create more of a through line through the episodes.
Yeah.
They did that first episode, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a great show now because they understand the need to like serialize the whole thing, I guess. Super impressive. Okay. Christy's brother, when he walks in with the bass and the truth about Stacy.
That was so pitch perfect.
He has, it's like default myfirstbase.com.
Yeah.
Like that.
Check this out. Plays Smoke on the Water.
Smoke on the Water?
Like discount Smoke on the Water on a bass that's like not plugged in. And it's just like.
I had friends who owned that bass who were exactly like that in middle school. Like to a T. It was eerie how well they nailed that part of middle school of like the cool, like, yeah, I'm in a band. I have a bass. It was the default bass that every kid gets as their first bass. I can play Smoke on the Water. I learned it from Guitar Hero. Like,
and as he's doing it, Stacy's like got hard eyes and like, he's so cool.
All these kids with their freaking basses and then everyone's like falling over them. Like, no, what are you? Anyway.
Like, yeah, the teenage boy cool cringe is perfect.
Yeah.
There was like another, I think, was this in The Truth About Stacy where they have competition from, or was this Marianne Saves the Day?
Truth About Stacy.
Yeah.
The guy reading the poetry.
Yeah, it was like, I'm a SoundCloud rapper.
I've never been more called out in my entire life than like weird dorky high schooler trying to impress people with like his bad poetry. Just that one episode. Again, only watched 2 episodes, but the writers of the show truly understand at least what it was like when I was a middle schooler or high schooler, like what that experience is and how terrible kids are. Like fully encapsulates that experience. I was so impressed.
I honestly, sorry, speaking of like the kid actors being fantastic, I think it's really impressive that like every single kid actor in this show is like on point.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, you want the main cast to be good, and they are really good. But even, like, the actress they got for Karen, Christy's younger sister, or her stepsister, she's, like, so... She gets, like, the, like, weird, like, creepiness of Karen really well, where she's just like, there's a crying lady in our bathroom. Like, she just, like, gets it. And then, like, Christy's brothers are, like, great. Like, obviously, it's, like, partially, like, it's just a well-written show. So they knew how to write for kids and probably, like, really well-directed and everything, too. But I just haven't seen a show like this in a while where it's, like, it feels so real. Like, I fully believe that these kids are the characters.
It was also just really cool to go into the show knowing that the kids, the actors themselves, really care about the series. Because, again, like, the way I consumed these books for the original episode, the actor for Christy read them online.
Yeah.
Like as an audiobook. And so I got to see her read the books first and then watch her on the show afterwards, which was very good job.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It'd be like, I'm imagining Christian Bale or Robert Pattinson in advance of one of their Batman movies coming out, being like on YouTube on a channel that they start like from the ground up, being like, I'm going to read a Batman comic.
They're doing like comic dubs for Batman.
Yeah, so they just like read a Batman comic and then they turn around to face the viewer and just like same format.
That's going to be me. I'm going to be punching the Joker. And then I say, take that, Joker. Zounds. This is an older one.
Wow. I'd love to see like that just in general for like any of this kind of media.
But great show. Nailed it. Netflix, what are you doing? Why'd you cancel that?
I
you
know.
canceled it, now the kids are too old.
Yeah.
You failed, Netflix.
Another thing I really loved is that they also brought in a lot of nuance to the parents as well. Like the parents all got their, you'll see this if you watch like the whole show, but the parents all get kind of like their little arc. And it's really impressive because like these episodes aren't like crazy long. They're 25-minute long episodes, but they managed to like put in so much care into each storyline that they have. Like in season 2, Christy's mom goes through like a whole kind of like fertility journey story.
Wow.
It's not super present. Like they just reference it here and there like, oh, like Christy's mom is going to the doctor or like this has been going on in her life. But the fact that they like even did that and like did it in a way that I feel like kids can like easily understand as well, I think it's really great because it's also like then it's like parents who are watching the show with their kids get invested in these characters too.
Yeah, what a great show for the whole family.
Yeah.
Honestly, the parents are really funny.
The parents are really great. Yeah.
I think that's what they call a family show.
Yeah.
Like Bluey.
Oh yeah.
Which I've seen some of and it's good.
Yeah. I just really appreciated how the main theme of the books, or a main theme of the books, which is community building, also made it into the show in like almost like a less nuanced way. They're more like, this is about community building.
Yeah.
In the second episode I watched, they have that whole like speech they write all the parents over. And I was like, oh, like this is very much about community strength against adversity.
Yeah.
Even if it's like in a very silly, like, oh, they took our babysitter business and also did a terrible thing by blackmailing a child.
Yeah.
That's messed up. That's way worse than the books. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was one change for The Truth About Stacy where I was kind of like, ooh, that's a lot. They really like dug up like this YouTube video of her and blackmailed her. And
another way they modernized the show, not as an improvement, but like it works. Like that's something that kids would do because kids are cool. Yeah. And it's effective.
You said cruel, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For a second, it sounded like you said cool.
Because kids are cool.
Kids are cool.
Blackmail's cool. And also like the parents' reactions too. Like part of me was like, that's a terrible thing to say to a kid right there. But also like parents do react like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Parents do just straight up voice their concerns to children right at their face.
Well, especially if your kid's on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nothing gets in the way.
It felt like, this is a story for the whole family. And it's told like that. But also, again, it felt authentic. Big ups.
Yeah.
Big ups. It's tough because when you got to do the TV thing, you're sort of, it's less structured now, I suppose, than it was like in the past, especially for streaming. But I'd be interested to ask you, Victoria, since you've seen like the whole thing, like how, like specifically Claudia and Janine's relationship, do they do more work with that after the episode, Claudia and Mean Janine?
Yes. Actually, a lot in season 2. I have so many things I want to say about Claudia and Janine in season 2. I'm like trying to figure out like...
Should we do another Babysitters Club episode?
Where we just watch the show?
Yeah, why not? I don't know. We can do special episodes. We've done them now in season 3.
We
did like a Percy Jackson in season 2, was it? A bonus episode?
Yeah. I don't want to like spoil too much, but Claudia and Janine's relationship it's treated a little bit similarly to like some of the parents' arcs where it's more in the background. And until you watch like the full season, you don't quite like notice the progression. Definitely after Claudia and Mean Janine, Claudia's definitely less antagonistic towards Janine. She's not so openly like, I hate my sister and I like never want to be around her. But there's definitely still in season 2, like they're still siblings. Like they still have conflict. Claudia is still very much like, why does my sister always kind of like butt into moments and like make the situation weirder or like whatever. But I can't get into it.
No, that's okay because this sort of, I guess, confirms my suspicions because the book, Claudia and Mean Janine, has more real estate to spend with Claudia and Janine than the half-hour episode of the TV show does. And the TV show has like a B plot that it needs to talk about. And sure, the books tend to have B plots, but like the very distinct B plot of the show was like Marianne changing her room around.
Yeah.
And it was like a nuanced B plot about, change and getting used to, change as you personally like go through changes and some reflections about like her mom who passed away, like when she was born and all that. But it also meant like there was a very small amount of time compared to like the graphic novel or anything to really explore like everything with, Mimi, and her health crisis, how that affects the family and Claudia and Janine, which I kind of missed. But I was also like, I think this is a side effect of like adaptation.
Yeah. And I did say that Claudia and Mean Janine is changed the most drastically in the adaptation. It basically doesn't, it hardly does anything that the book does, actually. They change a lot of it. Pretty much the only thing that remains is that Mimi has a stroke. And
brutal. I will like.
Sorry, Mimi, you're not getting out of this one.
Yeah, Mimi. At the end of the episode, Mimi is like woken up, and she's like really in the throes of it. She's having a crisis. The episode resolves with Mimi in a bad place.
Yeah. Whereas like the book is like you get to see more of her recovery, and it's like a longer storyline about Claudia.
Yeah.
Like
the family kind of restructuring itself, and I don't know. I really liked. I guess that would be like the most distinct thing is like, but that is really because you can't. Because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there's so much in that book that like justifies it being book length, but you can't put all that in a single episode of TV.
Yeah.
So
it
I was
also
curious.
makes sense if you're trying to stretch things out over a season too, instead of doing just like single arcs.
Yeah.
If you want something in the background, I haven't watched it, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that after that episode, it's mainly just anytime like Mimi is in a scene, you kind of see her like slowly start to regain her speech more and more like of her like personal autonomy, and they like make reference to like, oh, she's still like recovering from her stroke, etc. But it's definitely not like in the book where all the focus is on like her recovery. So obviously like there's definitely still things you like lose from book to adaptation.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you said, for you, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised that that's like the episode with like the most changes. Because, I mean, you just, again, it's like a length thing. You have to.
Yeah. I think what I appreciated was, because we talked about this in the Babysitters Club episode, where the Babysitters Club was pretty ahead of its time in terms of the diversity and attempts to like bring in more cultural influences into it. But I think it didn't do everything, right? Which I don't think it's right to. Yeah, I don't think it's right to assume that Anna M. Martin could like tell all of those stories from that perspective. And so I think what's special about the adaptation is I think a lot of the people I think it's very clear that the creative team who worked on the Netflix show were fans of the Babysitters Club.
Yeah.
And so they're approaching it with the lens of like, let's take what we love about the Babysitters Club, but now we have a chance to put our own experiences and like inform the characters in that way, which is why like I think for Claudia and Mean Janine, they decided to dive more into like the like cultural and family history for the Kishis in a way that like Anna and Martin couldn't have done in that book. So I'm reiterating a lot of things I said in the original Babysitters Club episode, but
they're worth reiterating.
I just think like this is one of those shows where I can kind of like mesh the like book with the adaptation together. It's like the things that they added to the adaptation don't detract from like things that happened in the book. I can almost like see them happening, not like simultaneously because it's like obviously different storylines, but I don't know, like I just feel
they
like
enhance each other.
It enhances the
you
experience.
can gain something from both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like how like the Fire Nation episodes in the live action Avatar might enhance the animation.
Yeah.
While the movie does not enhance the animation.
Yeah, I just like appreciate the show for not just like paying homage to the original series, but changing like the things that like could or like needed to be changed. Yeah.
It's very clearly invested in by its creators.
Yeah.
Especially the lighting and set design. I was so impressed because it's not usually when you hear Netflix adaptation, you're like, we're not gonna be able to see a single thing on that screen. But it was lit like the drawings. From the book and like the covers. It was so bright and colorful, but not like painful to look at. And also the set design was modern retro, but not in a sort of like gimmicky way.
Yeah.
Sort of in like a subtle way. So impressed.
Just directed really well. I feel like every like, and the pacing was great, and it's great.
We need more kids content like this.
Yeah, I think that was like the other sad part about Netflix canceling it was I was like, this show is like so great for like the target demographic that it's aimed towards. Obviously, like I enjoy it because I have nostalgia for the series. But if I was a kid their age and like watching that show would have been so fun. I would have loved that. Also, their fashion sense is so good.
These kids dressed way better than I did in middle school.
Yeah.
Although I guess I didn't care at all about that. I was like cargo shorts and graphic tee.
Hey, cargo shorts, I'm right there with
You
you.
can keep a lot of rocks in those pockets.
Oh, yeah. And they're
what do
like
you need the rocks
loose?
for? What don't you need the rocks for?
Anyways, yeah, if you guys are down to a bonus episode of Babysitters Club, I will not complain because, I don't know, I think I still have
I'm so down.
a lot.
I'm still down.
This is like when we were talking about like with Prydain, it's like, oh, like you don't have a lot of people to talk about. This is that show for me where it's like no one else I know has watched the Babysitters Club. So I am selfishly forcing it upon Nostalgia Club.
Yeah. And if we need more justification, because it's a show about middle schoolers and then I assume high schoolers. I don't know if they get that far.
They don't get to high school.
No!
Well, I guess like their siblings are in high school, so.
Yeah. But like even just the 2 episodes I watched gave me so many middle school flashbacks. There's
School stories for days.
clearly justification. Maybe not stories. Maybe I just get called out over and over and over again. And it just hurts a little more over time.
I'm curious what you're going to think about Mary Ann's episode, since when you read the book, you said that you related to her character arc.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the actor who plays Marianne's dad, he's one of those actors that like you've seen in like various places.
He's Kevin in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I don't watch.
Oh, you haven't watched.
Whoa. Wait, really?
Oh, you haven't met Marianne's dad.
No, they got Kevin.
Yeah, they got Kevin.
They got Kevin.
What is?
He's in The Good Place too.
Yes, he's
He is in The Good
Sean.
Place.
He's
in
in
The Good Place.
every good sitcom and also some bad sitcoms. Mark Evan Jackson.
Mark Evan Jackson. Mark Evan Jackson, if you're listening, gosh, you do such a great job. What else have you been in? Write in and tell me, because I forget.
He's in a lot of stuff.
He works. I've got his Wikipedia page up. Oh, he hosts a podcast about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Wow.
Well,
He's in...
I suppose we could call him a colleague then.
Okay, Thrilling Adventure Hour, Parks and Rec, 22 Jump Street, Kong Skull Island, DuckTales, Good Place. He went to college.
He was in Jumanji.
He has a personal life.
Oh, he was in Welcome to Night Vale
Whoa!
for 1 episode.
Key and Peele, Psych, Arrested Development, Happy Endings, Two Broke Girls, Modern Family, Blackish, Wet Hot American Summer.
Really?
On the stage performance.
Ah.
I'm just reading the blue
The
highlighted
list.
stuff.
I guess he's just been in a lot of stuff.
He's
so
in a
just
lot of
recommend-
stuff, so probably.
I mean, he's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I will say he's a much softer version of Marianne's dad in the show.
That's true.
Like, I love how the book series is like, even when it goes to dark places, is like definitely a safe space. Like, you're going to resolve things by the end. The show is similarly a safe place and it'll go to like serious places. But because it's got to like slow burn some of this stuff, like over a longer amount of time, they sort of compensate for that by like, for example, Marianne's dad in the show, not quite as, like, I think, standoffish or as strict as in the book. In the book, it's a little fine because you have a book length to, like, have...
That's true. If it's, like, you don't see Marianne's dad very often, so if every time you saw him, he's, like, yelling at her, that would probably come off the wrong way.
Yeah, whereas in the show, it's like, well, we'll just make him a bit, like, he's still sort of, like...
In the show, he's more awkward, and
Yeah.
it's more so that he just doesn't know how to, like, talk to his soon-to-be teenage daughter.
Yeah.
He has a lot of, like, unprocessed grief after the death of his wife that he's just, like, never talked about. I mean, you got to think about it. It's like, if your wife passes away when your child is so young, you can't talk to your kid about that. And then the older that they get, they do kind of want to talk about it. But at that point, it's been so long that you're just like, I don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an interesting and I think very, like, well thought out, like, character sort of like contouring where they're able to like preserve what they need to, but like make sure they maintain that same tone and that same like sense of safety within the within the work.
Yeah.
It's just really good.
I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying the show so far.
Yeah.
It'd be really bad if you guys were like, yeah, actually isn't that great.
No.
Okay, well, here's my based opinion. I like the graphic novel of Claudia and Mean Janine more.
That's fair.
But, you know,
The graphic novels are really fantastic. Being a Babysitters Club fan, you're so lucky. You're just like...
So much content.
Spoiled for content, and it's all good.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Let's move on to Haikyuu. So this one was our most popular episode of season 3.
We said we're doing a season 2.
We are going to do season 2.
So we can't talk about season 2.
So we can't talk about season 2, which Michael has finished watching.
I've finished watching season 2.
Yeah. So we won't get into that. But clearly there's demand. The people have spoken. It's not just me wanting to do another Haikyuu episode. The people have said that...
Is this just your friends listening to the episode over and over?
Some of it might be me listening to over and over.
Hell yeah.
Because I really do enjoy this episode. No, I actually have a non-related to volleyball story.
Okay.
But I had an epiphany that I wanted to share. I think Jino asked the question, like, did you guys have any, like, similar, like, sports related stories or like people you witness like go through like a Kageyama similar like dedication to a sport, you know? And I didn't have that. But my orchestra experience was kind of like my Haikyuu equivalent.
Okay.
Because, you know, like Daichi and Suga and like some of the upperclassmen, like they know that like this is their moment to like play volleyball at this level. And then afterwards, they're probably going to go to college. They're not going to play volleyball professionally. It's probably just going to be a hobby for them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was orchestra for me. Because when I was in high school, I was so invested in orchestra. And it did have like similar dynamics, just like any club does, where it's like you have upperclassmen who like graduate and then you slowly like step into their roles. Also, like there's some like competition between like, because in orchestra, you have what's called chair placements, where you go to our teacher, the conductor, and you perform a piece that you've like practiced. And then she basically like ranks you, which is like kind of like a high pressure system if you're like someone who like wants to pursue music after high school.
But there's a very clear ranking system. Like you can see it.
Yes, because you literally sit in the order of your chair placement that you're ranked. And so it's got like that similar like competitive aspect of like if you're an upperclassman and then a freshman comes in who's like pretty talented. Like my freshman year, I think I was 5th.
Whoa.
In the class.
Okay.
5th or 6th. The way that my orchestra did it was 1 and 2 are first and second chair in the first violin section. Then 3 and 4 are first and second chair in the second violin section. And then afterwards, you fill out the first violin section and then you fill out the second violin section. So I was 3rd chair first semester and I swapped to 4th chair like second semester or something like that. But basically like I ended up in a chair a lot higher than I thought I would be and definitely above some people who had been in orchestra for like a little bit.
Yeah.
I ended up being first chair my senior year for a variety of reasons. My orchestra teacher got really sick that year and she had to take a whole semester off.
Oof.
And so we had a sub, but the sub wasn't super good at like conducting the orchestra because the way that our orchestra teacher, she was like trained in both choir and orchestra, but I don't think a lot of universities do that kind of training anymore. Now it's mainly just choir or you do orchestra or you do band. And so we got a sub who was supposed to cover all of her classes, so orchestra and choir. But I think like our teacher didn't feel like she was like strong enough to like lead the entire orchestra. So they made me first chair.
Oh, to try to like alleviate the burden?
Yes. And then my good friend ended up in second chair. And she was definitely going to pursue music in college. And I kind of knew that I probably wasn't going to. Like, I just wasn't, like, as invested. Like, I loved being in orchestra, but I was already at the point where I was like, I'm kind of stressed, and I, like, honestly don't have a lot of time to practice. I ended up with, like, 3 solos that semester.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't have time for this, but it is what it is. So, yeah, like, I basically, like, had to become, like, second in command of the orchestra for, like, that semester. And it was kind of crazy. And then after I graduated, like, I didn't do that anymore. But I think I get, like, a similar, like, feeling of, like, I imagine, like, if you played, like, a sport in high school and then you no longer play it, but then you go back and, like, I don't know, watch your team play. Or, like, even just, like when I went to the Avatar concert, I was just like, oh, yeah, like, I really miss that feeling of, like, being in, like, a full orchestra and, like, getting to play with all these people and, like, forming relationships with everyone in the orchestra. I will never get that experience again. Like, yeah, I could join, like, a small, like, quartet or something, but I'm not, like, good enough to, like, play in, like, a professional orchestra level. And so high school was kind of it for me.
You're totally right, though, because when you're in high school, middle school, that's your chance to do things that you never will do again at a certain level that is impossible to achieve. Like, I did theater all 4 years of college, and then I never got on a stage ever again.
Yeah.
And, like...
I mean, you can still do community.
I mean, yeah, you can still do it.
But the opportunities aren't as common and they aren't as forgiving. And there's, like, less space made for them within your life in the way that school will be like, yeah, we will dedicate a chunk of your day for you to be here doing this.
There's no structure.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never be able to go to state again for soccer. Not that I want to, but I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. I think back and I actually, like, most of my life was dedicated to orchestra. Rehearsals after school, I ended up playing in, like, pit orchestra 2 years. So that was, like, basically my evenings for, like, 2 months of each year.
Yeah. And you still use those skills to some extent. Just maybe not in the ways you thought you would, but they're still relevant.
Yeah. Next up, we have The Tale of Despero. Should we just talk about the rodent media all at once?
We have The Tale of Despero and Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel.
Two very similar stories.
Despero, I feel like we covered pretty extensively. There has been no further Despero news or experiences on my part, at least. Alvin the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel has been following me ever since that episode. A shocking number of businesses have decided to put on one of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, often the Squeakquel.
Oh, yeah, you're at the car rental place.
Oh, yeah, I was at a car rental place like a week after the episode, and they were just playing the Squeakquel on the TV. And it was very rude of them to do that to me. That's it.
Gosh, it's like some kind of divine intervention, except it's not like the glorious catharsis divine intervention. It's like some demon who's just like, here comes the Squeakquel.
I think the closest thing I have to that is like, you know, like when you weren't aware of like a piece of media, but then like, let's say like a friend starts talking about it or like you read it yourself and then suddenly it feels like you start noticing more like.
Yeah, like it was always there, but now you see it.
Yeah. But this is like a whole different level. This is like they're actively being like, what should we play on the TV? Alvin and the Chipmunks, but not the first one, the Squeakquel.
And like, why?
It's the memes.
Maybe they're
it's gotta
fans
be
of
the
Nostalgia Club, Gino.
Maybe they are.
Maybe they're...
Then
saw
why did they
you.
say something?
They're too nervous. They're like, oh my gosh.
That's their way of like...
It's Jino from Nostalgia Club.
I don't know.
It's Jino from We're Alive Archive.
Don't say that. Oh, no.
I did have a thought about, is it Zachary Levi?
Yeah.
So his character struck me. I'm only bringing this up because I wrote it down in my notes app. So I'm like, well, if I don't say it now, I never will. He strikes me as if Steve from Blue's Clues had a much more chaotic early life and was like thrown off track. He's like if Steve from Blue's Clues never went to college.
He's like if Steve from Blue's Clues failed?
Oh, no.
A little bit.
Oh.
Dang.
That's my vibe. Maybe he's more like if Joe from Blue's Clues failed. That feels a little closer. Joe's got a little bit more like, I don't know. Joe from Blue's Clues is a little more clueless, I think.
Yeah.
Than Steve, which is part of his charm, part of his personality. Sorry, this turned into a Blue's Clues.
It's interesting to end. We're ending on the Squeakquel, which is partially due to like tradition because we did the B movie like a couple of seasons ago. But it's weird to end on something kind of like making fun of it and ribbing it and like, you know, like
But people love it.
But people, listen, as a kid, I loved Alvin and the Chipmunks. And I know people in my life who also loved Alvin and the Chipmunks. To like almost like a...
Well, I was saying people love it when we roast things on
yes,
Nostalgia
also
Club.
that.
Everybody loves a good roast.
Speaking of...
Sometimes I feel like it's a little mean, but you know what? I think the
All in
Chipmunks
good fun.
movies, everyone I think who even worked on the Chipmunks movies is having a good time with them.
Yeah. Or we hope.
We hope.
We have no clue. Maybe it was a terrible, terrible place to work.
Bridget Midler, if you remember your time on the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, write in. Tell us all about it.
Not.
If that's how we get Bridget Midler to notice our podcast, I truly embarrassed. Just an icon of multiple industries. What a hero.
All right, well, that's it for season 3. We'll be back for season 4.
I have one more thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry I forgot. On the topic of Prydain, I know it's the thing that I will never stop talking about. For the first time, I don't think I talked about this in the other Prydain episodes, I listened to them for the most part.
Ooh.
I just didn't have the time to sit down and read them all, so I listened to them.
You got the Gurgi experience.
I got the Curry experience. Instead of going through the way that Jino did with those audiobooks, I listened to someone read them out. And he has like a YouTube channel called Storytime with Chris. Very just like low tech, like here I am with a camera and I'm going to read these books. But he does these voices for all of the characters.
Are they good voices?
They're incredibly good voices.
Gotta hire Chris.
I'm serious. I'm like, this person could be a voice actor straight up. So I just wanted to give a shout out to a very small YouTube channel, Storytime with Chris.
Storytime with Chris.
Storytime with Chris. Yay!
Thank you for giving the world a Prydain audiobook that doesn't hurt my brain and ears.
But that's all I got.
Yay!
Yay!
Wow, what a season. I am really proud of this season.
We did a good one.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for the next one.
All Studio Ghibli except for when we do the rest of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies.
That'd be a crazy season if it was all Studio Ghibli and then just Alvin and the Chipmunks at the end.
I would...
Gino would be like, I can't do this
I
podcast
don't
anymore,
know.
guys.
I can do the Studio Ghibli movies. I'm happy to do those.
Yeah.
Just watch them.
Well, as usual, if you have recommendations or just thoughts that you want to share with us, write into us at nostalgiaclubpodcast@gmail.com or send us a message on Instagram at nostalgiaclubpodcast. You can also, we have more social media through MouseKnight Studios if you want to reach us on like Blue Sky or Tumblr. We have that. So yeah, MouseKnight Studios.
Comment directly on the Spotify comment section.
Yeah. And until next time.
I don't know why it popped into my head. We're all in this together. Which is not a property we covered at all.
High School Musical in season 4?
Add it on.
Hey, we could.
I have some stories about.
Really?
Yeah.
We're doing a High School Musical episode.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.